All right, all right, all right. Well, well, well. You know the drill. We are back. Myself, David Lorenzo Glover, aka the controversial counselor, and Herb Lewis, the big bad wolf, for another live open court discussion in the counselor's corner. We are streaming tonight live on Facebook and YouTube. This past Thursday, we covered the topic: Who taught you women how to land a man? Was it through his stomach? So tonight, obviously, we had to come back with our version of that show, and it is called Who Taught Us Men How to Vet Women? For many of us, this may come natural because we were taught by dads, uncles, big brothers, cousins, or friends, but some of us simply have no idea. We struggle with the process of vetting. Sometimes it boils down to the gifted gab that keeps people around in your life in regards to friendships or relationship. If that person has great conversation that keeps you engaged and you enjoy being in their presence, and you're off to a great start. But I'm going to leave it at that for right now. Please like and share this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Controversial Counselor. So yeah. So what's going on? Hey people, I know once we start the panel start joining, been getting a lot of some positive feedback as far as the counselor's corner and actually the broadcast. But one of the things that they did say is we kind of get off task on the broadcast, and people look forward to coming in to actually speaking about the actual topic. So what I'm asking folks is, when you speak, let's keep a nice flow. We really don't need the long-winded 15-minute responses because that kills time, and other people are sitting there and they don't have the opportunity to speak. So just keep that in mind. We just got to keep it flowing. Tonight we got some questions related to this subject area, and we got Willie in the studio, about to bring him in. So, man, Herb, man, what's good with this topic, man? Vetting women. That may not, like I said, it may come natural to some people, but some people, they can't trust the process and they struggle with it.
Oh, confidence, man. It's it's a territory that even with modern culture that men still have to wade into. It's almost like uh, a landmine field. And one wrong step, man, you can lose a couple toes here. You might be severely maimed. You may never want to go back out there and try again. And you have a lot of younger men who are kind of gun shy. They don't, they don't, they just don't know what to do. They're all thumbs, and it's the sweaty palm, the prom, and the funny thing is, social media has made it even worse because now you have to deal with a whole different dichotomy of how to quote unquote approach an individual, whether it's male or female. And even though we're attempting to have a more egalitarian society, there are some things that are still going to be left up to males to do, and one of those is approaching women. Still proposing marriage, even though you see some women doing that. So heaven help the younger men that they don't have role models out there, because now a lot of the information that they're getting from pop culture, and pop culture, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to male female relationships, is destructive, dysfunctional, and it just it's counterproductive to I think healthy relationships in general. Never mind for the younger generation. So it's a lot. Hopefully we can answer some questions for some people. If the younger men are listening, younger women as well, they can they can learn something from this, and be more approachable if they want to, or actually help open the gate for somebody who you may want to approach them, but they just don't know how.
Okay. What's good, Willie?
What's going on, fellas? Thanks for having me back. I've been looking forward to this all day. I was scared to lean out. I was scared I was going to miss
it. All right. So what's your take on this whole thing about the vetting process with men?
No. We jumping right in, or we just giving like a little brief?
Just giving a little brief.
Then for me, a little brief thing. I think for me, I'll just tell you for me, I think that my biggest issue with vetting is I try to, of course, most of the times you meet people, especially if it's online or something like that, you're doing a text or more, a quick message to them on Facebook or wherever you're meeting through. But I find my best way of vetting somebody is through conversation, which people don't do a lot of nowadays. They do a lot of conversation. They do a lot of texting. So for me, I think conversation is one key part of vetting a person.
All right. So
I just gotta leave it right there right now. I'm waiting.
So one of the questions that I had was, when entertaining a woman's company, what are you looking for? Are you looking for a prospective wife, a companion, friend, or other? I'll let you go, Herb, with that.
When I first saw that one, I was like, that's a very, very interesting question. And for me, it depends. There's one factor that really probably going to rise above the other three. Or just, I'm sorry, not rise above the other three. That's going to be paramount first, and that is, where do we meet? Are we meeting at a fundraiser, or are we meeting at some type of festival, or are we meeting at a volunteer, or are we just happen to randomly meet on the street? Because her attire is going to tell me an awful lot about her. So if I meet her at a fundraiser or an event of that nature, she's already been pre-screened. And for people that asking what does pre-screen mean, she's already met certain metrics. So I'm not going to have to ask certain questions or what brings you here to this fundraiser, things of that nature, because she's already community minded. She likes to give of herself, which for me is always a good thing, because I'm in that mode too. So she's usually going to be dressed conservatively, which is always a good thing. We see a lot of sexually suggestive dressing for women, and for a lot of men, we see men that are unkept. They're dressing with the pants sagging down, underwear showing no belt, and I'm just like, at what point are we going to start addressing that as a culture? And it's not just Native Black Americans that are doing that. That's across the ethnic divide that a lot of people are doing that. So, that's just my thing. So if I see her there, I automatically know what she is. So she's going to automatically vault into the category of girlfriend with an aspect of possibly a potential wife. And that's, like Willie said, that's going to be sorted out when we sit down and have conversation, because I'm the type of person I still like to have phone conversation. That's just me. I'm a communicator. I'm a talker. I want to sit down and hear what you have to say about certain topics. I want to know what it is that you feel about this. And it doesn't matter what we're discussing, it's the fact that we're having a discussion. So I can go out, sit down in a restaurant, or for me, we can go sit at the Falls. The Falls is always a draw, and it's always nice to have that type of atmosphere that creates a backdrop, because it eases the tension, because there's no expectations. People already know about me and my unrequited expectations. I go into every situation I do with no expectations other than what I have for myself. So for me, where we meet at is ultimately going to determine that, because like I said, her manner of dress is going to dictate a lot. There was just a post in another group that I'm in that was talking about, women wearing leggings. And I understand women want to be comfortable, but it makes it hard to denote what type of woman you're dealing with. Unless she's coming from a situation where she was just working out, or she's running some errands and she's just doing the first thing she can get. She's going to pick up her kids or something like that. I can understand you putting something on. You're not really stepping out to make a statement or even really to be viewed in that manner. I have a friend, and I'm gonna shout her out, Denise Scott. She always talk about every time she steps out the house, she's always dressed to impress. She says she never goes out slacking and not looking like she's a fresh printed $100 bill. So, that always is going to play a role for me, is where we meet at, because that's going to dictate her manner of dress.
So the weather's getting hot. So are you saying when you have a woman with a nice curvaceous body and she's showing a little something, that you're gonna have kind of judgment on that, or you're gonna dictate how far you take it because of that?
Well, it depends on what she's wearing. She wearing a sundress, we good. If she wearing, she come out, in the one piece trying to show everything, yeah, I'm just like, you know what? She might be a 1HQ. And for those who don't know what a 1HQ is, a one-hitter quitter. And that's just not the way. That's something me and my boy, shout out to Connor, we made up when we were going to Buff Stadium, man. She's a 1HQ, man. Yo, I mean, if you get in, man, don't expect anything grand, because that's how she presenting herself. And it's always, and I'm sure people on the panel understand this. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. So if that's the impression that you want to leave upon somebody, I'm not going to stand in your way. This is why I always, when I'm talking about my mentors, I'm like, look, the way you're presenting yourself is how somebody's going to judge you, and they keep thinking they can mask that by dressing well. And I say, yes, you can dress well, but the moment you open your mouth, you're pegged, because there's certain words you're going to use. You're going to string together words in a certain way, and people that are interviewing you, they've been doing that longer than you've been around. So that's just my thing. But sundresses, I'll tell you now, women, sundresses are inexpensive. Not that your clothes generally are expensive, but sundresses, a nice pair of shoes, whatever you decide to wear, as long as they're not flip flops or sandals, or as they say, the thong shoes, it sets you up for success.
Now damn well these women come on here, they're gonna roast you for trying to tell them how to dress, especially that they're grown women. So you might be setting yourself up for that one.
Tell me what to wear.
You guys, can I?
Don't tell me what I should be wearing.
It's there.
Hey guys,
I'll jump in there.
Oh, go ahead, Willie.
Hey guys, can I jump in?
Oh, well, are you done? Because I wasn't sure.
No, go ahead, Willie. You fine? We got time, man. We got time.
Well,
Okay, no. I just kind of the first question different from how Herb took it, because it says when enter a woman's company, what are you looking for? A wife, companion, friend, or other? And so for me, it really made me laugh. I was kind of laughing, but I wasn't laughing at what he was saying. I was laughing at the fact that this situation sort of took place with me yesterday, when I was just talking about how to meet people online, things like that. I actually met someone a couple days and kind of conversated, go back and forth texting. And so yesterday I asked her, would she like to get together? Because, this is my way of vetting. We did good with the texting. We texted a little bit, but then I said, I need to see what her conversation is. And that's going to determine, wife material, companion material, friend material, or like you said, hit it and quit it material. So I went and picked her up yesterday at about 5 o'clock and went to where Herb said, took her to the falls. She had never been to the falls. And so she's from another area. She just moved to Buffalo. So took her to the falls, and me and this young lady, literally, I went to take her home and drop her off at 11:30. Now, I told you I picked her up at 5 o'clock. We sat at the falls talking until 11:30. And when I went to take her home, she said, wait a minute, let me take this stuff upstairs. And she came back and we sat in the car for another hour and a half. So when the conversation ended, it was, like I said, I enjoyed it, but I saw it as being a friend first. that's kind of how I look at my relationships. If we can be best friends and talk about anything and have conversations, then it builds on that. Because at the end of the day, if she's not my best friend, if she's not my confidant, if she's not the person I can turn to when I'm going through something and I got to turn to another female friend or somebody else, then, it's not going to be a real situation for me. And young lady, like we sat, I went to pick her up and I was like, I'm just going to pick you up. Some things to do before. So I went and picked her up and took her to the falls because she had never been to the falls. And man, when I say 11 o'clock, I felt back and I'm like, well, I've been out here with you for 6 hours. Let me take you home. And I went to take her home. And she was like, well, hey, let me take this to the house because I took her to the store to get some stuff on the way home. She came back and sat in the car for another hour and a half talking to me. I'm like, wow. So, I mean, that right there. And like I said, we're just right now, we're just on a friend stage, getting to know each other. But I could see it going to that because of the way we were able to conversate and just talk about anything on the first opportunity of meeting. So for me, that is, like I said, conversation is key to me. I'm a writer. Willie A. speaks. I love to have conversation with people, intelligent. It doesn't always have to be intelligent because we were cracking jokes and acting the fool and talking about the folks that was walking around in the falls for a while. So, I mean, it just was an all-around nice activity, just having someone that you can be yourself and relax and talk to, and they were able to relax and be themselves with me. And see, that right there, that's the beginning of a relationship for me. That's how I vet people. I post on my page a lot of times, I'll say, before I go out with a person, they got to read out loud, and it's like, oh. But I say it like a joke. But the thing is, if you can't hold a conversation, then there's nothing I can do with it. Reading out loud is like holding a conversation. If you can't read out loud, then you definitely can't hold a conversation. So that's like a running joke for me, is that they have to read out loud before I can take them on a date. But this young lady, she definitely can read out loud. So we'll be going on another date.
All right.
Hey, just a quick, hold on, David. There's some, if you're willing to disclose this, they want to know, somebody asked about how old the young lady was. Ballpark. You don't have to give her exact age if you know it.
Young lady that I went out with?
Yes.
Let's say 49, 50.
Okay.
49, 50 range.
Anwar.
All right, guys.
Doctor.
I'm going to be fast because I got to eat here. I might come back up there. But I just want to say, like, as a backdrop thing, that a lot of boys are not taught that they should vet. They don't come into any type of partnership with women with any asks for themselves. So a lot, there are some of us who don't learn that we can't ask for stuff and that we should ask for stuff and have a standard until we get much older. So I just wanted to say that. And I think, I don't know if you guys heard, I know you've heard of Dr. T.S. Johnson, but I think at one point he commented that most of the young men that he meets, they don't have any asks, but the women have a lot of asks. They want this, and this. No. Most of us, we just want to be peaceful and, just have a few things. So I just want to come up and say that.
All right. Thank you, Sharon. And I think that's
what he just said reminded me of my program that I do with my boys in the school. We do a part of our program is called 4 W's to Success. And the first part of it is who you are. And a lot of times, like he just said, a lot of times our young men don't ask for anything because they really don't know what they want. They don't really understand what they want. So it's hard for them to pick and choose what they want in a relationship because they don't even really understand themselves. By understanding who they are, which is what we help them to understand, then they can better find themselves dealing in a situation where they're matching themselves with somebody else. A lot of the young lady, and they looking for the butt and the chest, or the they're looking at that outfit. And a lot of times they don't know what else to look for. So for them, for a lot of our young men, it's visual. It's visual for them. And then once they get to know the person, a lot of times it's that hit it or quit it move, because they get it pretty quick, and then they don't have any interest anymore. Because they've never built any conversation or any relationship within that person, because it was all about that goal of getting getting that action from them. And once they've gotten that, there's nothing else to keep them there, because they've achieved all that they set out to get. By helping them to understand who they are. And I do that in my program, especially with my 8th grade boys. We talked about that, understanding who you are in a relationship, because I'm teaching them how to make money. I said, so now you're making all this money, you started a business, you're getting money from real estate, you're getting money from stocks and bonds, all the things I'm teaching you. I said, now you meet this young lady and she turns you on, you get with her without protection, and she has a child. Now there goes your savings, there goes the money from your business, they're going to get that stocks and bonds money. So I start showing them these things, and it makes them think about some of their actions, because they don't think about those things. All they're thinking about is being like their friends and getting as much as they can get. Cool to say, they call them bodies. I got 5 bodies. I got 6 bodies, 10 bodies, which means they had sex with 10 different girls, And so, because when the first time they said it, they were talking about a young lady and said, well, she got like 5 bodies on her. And I said, what, she killed somebody? Like, what, she killed somebody? And they were like, no, Mr. Price, she slept with like 5 or 6 guys that we know. And I'm like, oh, okay. He said, yeah, when you say she got a body on her, that means she's had sex with somebody. And I'm like, oh, okay. I had not a clue what they were talking about. Bodies. What is a body? They kill somebody? Well, yeah, but that's their whole drive, is to get the bodies, and then afterwards they realize there's no real connection with the person, and so they move on.
And the thing about that is, even I can go back to our age, like, unless you had someone, like I said in the introduction, your father schooling you, uncles, big brothers or cousins, sometimes you don't get that information. You get it from the streets, or you get it from your peers. And me, I was kind of a late bloomer with the ladies. So a lot of stuff I used to hear from my friends, and we didn't call it at the time, but they were getting bodies, but some of those bodies, they could have left it where it was at. And I was the late bloomer, so they would say I was scared of it. They would always say that, you scared, or whatever the case is. But I wanted to be a little more selective in my process. So a lot of times the first couple times I started talking to girls, it was probably people that I really wasn't interested in, and I just did it because of the peer pressure. And now, as I get older, I sit back and laugh at it, but I know some guys go through that, or kids, young men go through that stuff as well.
The funny thing is, I moved around a lot as a foster kid, as I've already disclosed that on this panel. And the one thing that I had to learn was to always be comfortable in my own skin, no matter where I went, no matter who was around me, no matter what environment or what situation, the environment presented. So I learned to always speak with different people, particularly females, because usually where I would go, I'm surrounded by guys, and I had a lot of brothers, so I didn't need to be friends with the guys per se. So I was always looking for somebody different to speak to. And for me, the outlet were always females. Now, I wasn't out there running around doing things with females. I mean, I was never considered the cute guy in the class or the good looking guy in the class. I was always run-of-the-mill guy in the class. Well, you can go talk to her, or you can go talk to him about this, and it's cool. And I've always prided myself on being that type of guy. And something that you guys sent out that I want to throw out there, a lot of the younger guys don't value discretion. And they think
not at all
that because their peers are talking about this female in this manner, that it's okay for them to join in. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying it's not. Sometimes you have to protect people from themselves. In other words, if you're a man and you're dealing with a female and you know she's promiscuous, you don't have to continue throwing dirt on her. You know, just let it be what it is. Protect her the same way you would protect yourself, you know, because eventually word will get around that you've been with her, and a female that may have had an inkling or an interest in you is going to say, you know what? I can't deal with you because you've been dealing with her and she's been dealing with everybody else. And I don't care if you're clean. It's just the fact that you're demonstrating poor mate selection, even if it's just a random session where you just, both of you are just engaging in sex and you're going on about your separate ways. I think that's one of the things, one of the hidden gems that, like you said, David, a lot of younger males don't have somebody around to tell them that, to show them those ropes. You know, we grew up with that. You know, we grew up in the era of blaxploitation. So the ideal man for us to mimic was the pimp. Well dressed, speak to the ladies, get a bunch of them, and if he wanted, he could have a bunch of them in bed. He didn't always do that, but he understood the epitome of what made a man, and he didn't always go around spreading his business. He didn't always go around talking about women in a manner that, even though it may have been accurate, it leads people to look at them in a different light. And I think that's something that needs to be brought back, is that decorum and that behavior and that discretion, so you can move in certain circles when these kids get to a point where the advice they're getting from Willie allows them to get that bag. You know, they can be the bold, ambitious, and generous that Kevin Samuels is talking about, but they can actually still move about, even though they might be dealing with some women who might be of a lesser quality, just because they say, you know what, I'm at a dry spell right now. I need to go handle some business. I'll be back, fellas. I'm good. And that this leads back to the first question you asked. What is a man considering a woman for? Because there's sometimes you just meet a woman and you just say, you know what, I have no interest in her, the other just carnal pleasure. You know, she's hitting that box. She exudes like when them doors are closed, no holds bar. We gonna have a 15-round heavyweight fight, and after that we gonna shake hands and we going our separate ways. And that's okay if that's what both of you agree to. Like Saria always says, fair exchange is no robbery. So as long as both adults are going into that, consenting, say, look, this is what we're gonna do, this is how we're gonna handle our business, and after that, we go our separate ways. So
now, how many people actually come to a mutual agreement like that? Usually one person or the other may be more vested in the relationship to continue it, and the other may have that mindset like, look, this is what it is. I never had no commitment with you. You know what it was to begin with. But a lot of times people get their lines blurred as far as that.
The inkwell, man, sometimes
that's where the communication.
Yes. Yep.
That's
Go ahead,
where
Willie.
communication comes in. Thing that's what I said. When if you're adults, which is, like I said, people don't talk. They do all that texting, and on that confusion comes in because they really don't understand where they are in that relationship. But when you have a communication with a person and you're talking about where y'all trying to go, what is this going to be? We just gonna hang out? What we gonna do? We gonna be friends? We gonna get to know each other? You know, see if it go to the next level. If it go to the next level, how far are you willing to go in that next level? You know, those are the kind of communications and kind of conversations a lot of people have. They don't. You know, you have people that they'll have conversation, but reluctant to talk about sex before they have it because they don't feel comfortable talking about sex. But then the relationship falls off because the person didn't do or fulfill what they thought the person should fulfill, but you never communicated your desires or your feelings or how you prefer to, you know, top or bottom, sideways, whatever the case may be, you know, in the back. So, you know, and that's the thing. People don't talk those things.
Well,
if they kind of like play it by ear.
Sometimes
and you have to communicate. If you don't communicate, it's I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sometimes with the communication, it may be dominated by one particular individual. So the other person may get turned off. If you're someone you call, how was your day? How was your day? And it goes into a long rant about the job. And then next thing you know, bringing up about their kid's father or the baby mother or something like that. Sometimes people in the role of just a active listener, and they say, what the hell with talking to this person? I'm just going to text them because I know once I get on the phone with them, it's a done deal. It's a done deal. And depending on your job situation, if you deal with people all day and you listen to them talk, you're like, yeah, I think I'm going to go the route of texting, whatever. I do not want to hear this because they don't come up for air. So sometimes people lean toward the texting because of that. That doesn't make it right, but sometimes that's what people do.
You know how you get around that?
You gotta find a happy medium.
Go ahead, brother.
No, I'm just saying you gotta find that
around?
happy medium where like, if you know that person is like that, then of course you're gonna maybe hit with text so that way you can get in what you need to get in. But then periodically you do also want to contact them and let them talk. So that we can see that you also are attentive to whatever's going on with them, especially if you have an interest in them.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, you know they're gonna go on and on, changing from one subject to the next. And so you may sit there and you say, oh yeah, you know, I gotta get right now, but I'll get with you later. And then you hit it with a few texts of some of the things you want to talk about, you know, so that way at least they know. And then the next time you hit them up, you come in with, you know, did you get my text? You know, this is what was going on with me, and I just want to share that with you. You know, you start off before they get going again. So you have to figure out that happy medium for it.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, I was before you said that, I was go. You know how I like to mention what's in your toolkit. Sometimes you have to learn how to interrupt somebody and redirect their focus. If you haven't mastered the what they call active listening or passive listening, then you'll probably be in a conversation where you'll be dominated. So that's a skill that some people don't learn. And by the time they learn it, you know, especially dealing with people, if you're in the humanities or any type of hospitality where you're just listening to people talk all day, sometimes you get home and you just don't want to hear anything. Especially somebody complaining about the workday. This is why I never ask about a workday. As far as I'm concerned, when you come to my place, your work day has ceased. Unless there's something that happened that you really need to get off your chest. And I'm talking about somebody hit you, you saw somebody get hurt or something of that nature. If it isn't, leave it. People will say that's extreme because peace of mind is extreme. I want to enjoy you. I don't want to enjoy the stresses that you have at your job. Leave that at the door. I always tell people that, you know, when I put my hands on my bike and I walk out of the building, I am private citizen. I am Herbert Peace Lewis. P stands for private. Don't ask me nothing. I don't know nobody. I ain't doing nothing. I'm going home. I'm stepping in here. I might grab something to eat, which is just going to continue to mess up my weight, but I'm going to do that because I'm home. Ain't nobody bothering me. I'm going to feed my boys. My boys and my cats, make sure they're okay. And I'm going to sit down for a couple hours until I pass out in this your captain chair and then I'm going to bed.
Okay. All right. I have some, I'm going to ask this next question. Yeah, hey, Lakia, how you doing?
Good, and you?
Great and great.
And everyone else? Her, Willie?
Well, Miss Lakia, how are you?
Well, thank you.
So I'm going to ask one more question for the guys, and then I'm going to, maybe you'll have some friends, some women friends, Lakia, join you. So I have some questions for the ladies too. So fellas, what criteria do you use to vet women? Like, what's your criteria? Everybody have like their little standard or their little cheat code or whatever. I shouldn't say cheat code. I know that doesn't sound right, especially with women listening, but you know what I mean? Some type of your little secret ingredient that you use that you'll go to.
Ooh. Like I said earlier, for me, it's clothing. I tell a whole lot about a woman, her character, and her level of couth by what she wears. That's from the head on down to the footwear.
And for me, a lot of it is, to me, is nothing better than laughter with a person, to be able to establish the good communication with laughter. I mean, and a lot of times, like Herb said, that people bring their jobs into situations, and if they have a stressful job, then that becomes a burden on you. Sometimes you just simply want to laugh. You just want to laugh. You want to communicate, like Willie said when y'all was at the falls, crack jokes on other people. Not at their expense, not that they know about it, but it's just something you like to do together and have a good time. Because I think those create other opportunities for you to be together again. As you said, Willie, you will be having a second date because it went off well. If you're out with somebody and you have no laughter and everything is like textbook and like serious questions and stuff like that, and you sweating bullets, like, damn, I couldn't wait for this to end. That's probably not nothing you want to jump back into. And I know people say, well, you always give people a second chance, but I don't know if it's going to get any better if they come in at you throwing darts the first day, whatever like that. So laughter is important, man. Good laugh.
Punishing yourself twice. You're punishing yourself twice.
Yeah.
I look at, when I first see a person, I look at their appearance. I'm like Herb. I'm kind of checking out the wardrobe. I'm kind of checking out how they carry themselves. And then I also, I normally stand back. If it's somebody I'm interested, I kind of stand back and watch how they interact with other people. Because that tells you a lot. Because if they walk in the room and they look nice, but nobody talking to them, then that kind of tells you that there may be some attitude issues in there. There may be some, some situations where, you just don't want to get involved. So then when you do approach them, I look at, once I get close to them, I'm looking at their eyes. I love eyes. I love eyes. I love smiles. And I also look at hands. If you got bad hands, man, you can't touch me. You can touch me with bad hands. I met
Hold on. What would be bad hands? What would be bad hands?
I'm going to tell you. I met a lady online, and I went all the way to a part of Ohio. I ain't gonna say because she might be watching. So I went to a part of Ohio to meet her, and man, she came and picked me up, and she put them hands on that steering wheel, and it was like that. What's that monster with them crinkly hands and them long fingernails and.
Oh wow.
And needless to say, we did not hold hands the entire. And that was, and when she dropped me off, I said goodbye, and I really meant goodbye. I didn't talk to her today. I got my car and went back home.
I can understand that. I can understand that too. Bad hands. I can think.
Hands and teeth. Hands and teeth and eyes, and then I look for the attitude, But if a person smiles and have a good conversation, like I said, we could be good friends and just hang out. If I enjoy company, I don't have to get in a relationship or be intimate with you. If I enjoy your company, I have friends. I have female friends that I've hung out. We've gone out of town, stayed in hotels. They had a bed, I had a bed. No involvement like that. We were just friends, And it was just because I wasn't feeling them that way, but we hung out, we got along better as friends, and I saw the relationship lasting longer and intimate. And it probably could have happened, but by avoiding that, we end up having a longer 15, 20-year friendship versus getting intimate. It don't work out, and now you're fighting each other because you feel uncomfortable now because of that situation. Hands are a killer, man. You can't be touching me with no bad hands.
Yeah, I can see that too. One of my irritants is like chip nail polish and all of that stuff, or them excessively, like you said, long fingernails. And sometimes the color and stuff, like you're doing too much, whatever. So a lot of those stuff could be like pet peeves and stuff that kind of like, nah, man, this ain't gonna work. It might sound petty to people, but hey.
Well, you know, the funny thing about that is I'm a,
'Cause
I'm a,
when you take them out somewhere. No, I'm sorry.
I'm a guy.
I was just gonna say when you take them out somewhere, you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, I'm a guy that likes a woman that wears very little makeup. And when I say very little, I'm not talking about you know your basics, your maybe your eyeliner, maybe some mascara and lipstick. I think those are you know pretty much almost standard for 90% of the women, just in general. But you know that foundation, the rouge, all that other stuff. I employ the military standard, the white glove test. If you fail a white glove test, I can't be bothered with you. I'm sorry. That's hard and fast. That's rigid. That's not going to change because I think if you have a good diet, for the most part, you won't need makeup. Just let your natural skin do what your natural skin does. I'm the girl next door in between the girl next door and the little bit dialed up girl next door. Might have some lipstick on it that accentuates her lips, you know, mascara that darkens her eyes a little bit. But that's it. I mean, I just like the plain Janes. I find value in plain Janes.
And I think always less is more. And on another note, with that, some of y'all ladies be out here looking like a funeral, looking like a damn funeral, like a corpse or whatever, caked up with makeup, whatever. That ain't a good look. That ain't a good look. And hey, don't get mad because this is men talking about how we vet, and we're just saying how we feel about certain things. But some of y'all looking like a straight up funeral, and that's not a good look.
But you know what? Some people might talk about me. Some people might talk about me. I tried not to touch that subject because people who know my ex-wife, she wore a lot of makeup. She wore a lot of makeup, and I didn't realize how much makeup she wore until I really got to know her. But by that time, I was already in love and ready to get married and everything else. From that date, from after that situation, I don't fool people to wear a lot of makeup.
Yeah, it's
I did. My wife wore a lot. My ex-wife wore a lot of makeup.
I've been waiting patiently. I know it seemed like I don't want to just you guys having a good conversation, but I did want to ask some questions. And since there's a bunch of guys on here, it's a good time to ask some questions. But I do want to share a couple of things because it's funny. Anwar came on and said, "Oh, men don't have a lot of ass." Well, that's funny because you guys just all had a couple asks that just went on a minute ago about makeup, dresses, how you dress, how we, present ourselves at a party. If we talk too much about business or our jobs or kids and we don't laugh, we got just as many acts.
But those aren't acts, though.
So I don't
No, they're really not.
What he's watching, I think.
No, those aren't acts.
But the other thing
those
is,
are more like the things that we look for. Those are the things we look for. Those don't really act. So those are more like things that we that person. Those are the things that help us determine whether we're going to go further into trying to get to know that person.
Yeah, that's like an observation.
That's not really an act. So acts is more so when you're right, because that's what men are visual, and that's one of the things I talk about in my program with my boys. Boys are visual. We're visual and we're audio. We go by what we see and what we hear. Women go for more of emotional things. Women are more emotional. They go by how they feel for things. So when we look at a woman, we look at how they walk, how they talk, how they dress. That's how young men and boys, that's how we determine whether we're going to go to that next level and try to get to know that person, but is appealing to our eye. That's not an act. That's just more of what we, our visual perception for what affects us.
When I say when my thoughts when you think about ask, those are asks that are unspoken asks. Not to say that's just my opinion. Those are unspoken. These are things that you would like. So same for us as women. There's some things that we use, but it's not about women today. It's about men. So I'm just saying that these are great things. I mean, I agree with you guys. One of my turnoffs is sweaty palms. You know, so hands, it does go a long way. Sweaty palms is something. If you want to hold my hand, you got sweaty palms. That's just a huge turn off. So I understand about the hands.
What if they're nervous?
This sweat, it still turns me off. Like sweaty palms, like it does something to me when you have sweaty palms. So it's just a turn off. But I get what you guys are saying. It seems real valid to me, because except for the part that there's some parts that came up that made me think about judging a book by its cover. Willie, when you said about women at a party and no one's talking to her, and that kind of gives you like a kind of like a concern, a red flag, because she's not communicating with other people. But I've always been the type of person that said, you know, even if somebody said something to me about someone, I want to kind of get to know them for myself, or just start having a conversation. I'm the type of person that would just start having a conversation with someone that's quiet, just to get them to open up and have conversation. And so to me, I would encourage any man and with making that kind of statement, don't judge a book by its cover.
Hold on. Before you continue, let me ask you this.
You missed what I said at the end of that. You missed what I said at the end of that. I said I stand back and I see if she communicates and how people communicate with her. And if people don't, but then I approach her to see how her attitude is with me.
I did hear you say that. And then,
so I mean, I don't judge her. It just gives me an idea of how her social movements are around other people, because I'm a what I do a lot of speaking, I do a lot of events. So if I'm taking this person somewhere, sometimes I may have to go on stage and present, and if I have to leave her at the table, I don't want her sitting there and people, her feeling uncomfortable, or people around feeling uncomfortable. So those are the things, like I said, that's all part of my visual to see if that person's going to fit in my world, if I'm going to fit in their world.
And also, and I did hear you say that, Willie, but I'm just saying, like, for those that do not step out, that's why I also made the comment. I would encourage guys to talk to the women. You know, I would try to open them up. So you did mention that. And then with Herb talking about how a woman dresses, you know, that's true. One of my things that I say, dress how you want to be addressed. That's one of the, because, you know, how you dress to make, you know, kind of give off the vibe of how you are. Personally, sometimes, but again, don't judge a book by its cover, because somebody could think someone's stuck up, or you know, just because they're quiet to me that they're not sociable. Just sometimes let me take a minute just to open up. But those just a couple of things I was thinking about. But I did ask a couple of questions. I believe this is a good opportunity as women that are watching to ask questions to you guys, with the fact of, I know you go with the vetting, but and I know we're talking about vetting, but how much do that vetting continue? You know, because one thing I can speak for myself as a woman, a lot of times men approach me and there's, you know, such gentlemen, they are, you know, have great conversations and very complimentary, whatever, just different things. It's very open, but then it changes. It's like it's not consistent. And I know most of the time guys will say, oh, because maybe something happened with the woman, but why would it change if that's who you are? You get what I'm trying to say? Like, if that's who you are as a guy, why would you stop being who you are if things change from the woman? And I just want, with the woman, I just want to understand that. And this is just in general. I've experienced it all around, so I'm just asking some general questions.
I'll answer that question in this way. What is consistent about the weather?
Say it again.
I'll answer that question in this way. From day to day to day to day, what is consistent about the weather?
That it changes.
Nothing.
Correct.
Nothing.
To think an individual is going to be one way through the entire time that you're together is expecting them to never change. And that means they never grow. Doesn't mean that growth is going to be good or is going to be bad, but they're always going to grow. And sometimes the experience that they experience can change them for the better, or it can change them for the worse. There's a statement that I heard some years ago, and I think is applicable. men date women with the hope that they won't change, and women date men with the hope that they will change. And I think somewhere in between that, there's a lot of jockeying for position. Well, what am I going to do if this happens? I constantly vet. Doesn't matter who I'm with. I'm looking to see if there's any minute changes, because eventually those minute changes turn around to lead to bigger things, because rarely does a change happens and it doesn't come on the heels of another change. You might find a different restaurant you might like. You might find something on TV that you might like better than this. And I'll say, well, what prompted the change? You say, I don't know. This is something different. There's always a catalyst for a change. Now, sometimes that catalyst could be subconscious and we don't even know it as people, whether you're male or female. So sometimes your environment will dictate a change that you really aren't conscious of until somebody points it out there and say, well, last year, you used to do it like this. Why you changed? And you won't know. You'll just say, I don't know. For some odd reason, I just do it like this. And it could be something that you see somebody else do, and you unwittingly picked it up because it was easier. Like I said, all the change isn't good or necessarily bad. It's just a change. So I'm always vetting people. That's just the way I am. I'm looking to see if they're doing things different, if they're moving different, if something else is coming to their spirit. Look at, when I say this, I mean that. I mean this. If you take a bunch of iron filings and you put a magnet in there, what happens to those iron filings? They attract to that magnet. Sometimes, because we're people and we're impressionable, as much as we might like to think that we're not, we are impressionable by something or someone. Sometimes a magnet can come into our sphere of influence and it changes us. So all of a sudden now we walk different, we talk different, we want to be smarter, we want to be in better physical condition, we want to anything. So it's not a bad thing to consistently vet somebody you're with, whether it's a romantic relationship or a platonic relationship, because some people are blindsided by certain things. They say, well, this individual just suddenly changed. Wrong. That individual changed slightly. You just didn't catch it.
So let me throw in, and I know Willie want to say something. Let me jump in and say something first. One of the things is, last night we just watched one of the greatest counterpunchers, Floyd Mayweather. So sometimes people change because they counter on other people's actions. It may be things that the person did, and you say to yourself, okay, I know I was this way, but now I got to put up my defense and I got to respond or counter like that. So sometimes that creates change. Sometimes people sit back and they counter what's put in front of them to protect themselves. And that's just short and sweet. Go ahead, Willie.
All right. Lakia, I'm going to use you for an example. Like you said, a person comes to you and they see you. Now, and think about it. They know you, they've watched you, they've seen you, because like I said, we're visual. So we've watched you in the community, we've seen you, we see all the things you're doing. So they know they have to come to you correct in order to get your attention. But what happens is a person who's trying to come to you the way they're going to get your attention, that may not really be who they are. So they're putting on a role. And when they realize that, they've got your attention, but they can't keep that role up, they're changing, is they're actually now showing you who they really are. So it's like they see you and they know you all about business. They know you all about taking care of what got to be taken care of. So they coming at you, showing you, because they know that's what you're about. So they coming at you saying, this is who I am. I can fit in your world. But then the more time you spend with them, they can't really fit into your world, because that means they have to be already in that situation and not trying to be in a situation. And so when they realize they can't stay that role, they fall back, they stop calling. It's not that they lose interest, they have the interest, but they just know they can't continue to do things that they know is going to be right to be in your world, because you're not going to go for it. They know you're not going to go for it. So instead of, having bad feelings or getting knocked out, but just, putting on a spot that, you might say you made me think you were one way, and now I realize you're not. Instead of them actually hearing you say that, they just kind of back off because they already know that they can't hold that role or keep that image going, which is really not them. If that's how that person is, if that person is who they are, then it will never change. Things will change in the relationship and you'll grow and get to know each other, but what attracted you to him will never change because that's just who they are. But if that's not who they really are, because they're trying to get attention by what they know or are looking for, knowing what is going to be up to your standard. If they can't hold that, if that's not who they are, they can only hold it for so long before it fall off.
And and I say that because even I heard I don't know if anyone had an opportunity to watch that movie that David posted about dating in Atlanta. And I did hear a guy. You got to watch it because it reminds me of the Counselor's Corner so much. The one thing that he said is like women's hearts are like rubber bands. We bounce back. We'll just keep bouncing back and being who we're supposed to be. Where men, it was funny. He called it what do they call cardiomyopathy? How men have broken hearts, and it's hard for men to forgive or like let go. And so like when I realized, and I want to say this like with women, I want to see what their thoughts are, is that you guys go through the vetting and be like, you were excited about this woman. I had great conversation. And then something she does just kind of turns you off. And as David said, he made a comment, then you kind of go into this defensive mode. Let me back up a little bit. Potentially, you can do that. You know what I mean? Because that's true. And then start kind of fading away when maybe little things start coming up. I get it because same thing with us as women. We do too. But then I think with women, we're more apt to be, I speak for myself. Even though there's things that we may be like, it's this bothers me a little bit, but still I love him, or we get along. This way outweighs this, and we'll still hang in there. At the same time, the guy, you know what I mean? It's like kind of like you said, and you guys said in the beginning, always letting the woman know where you are in the process, like where you are. Like when it changes, do you guys let women know? Okay, now it's changed. I'm not going to keep leading you on. This is what it is. Or do you keep leading them on? And you understand what I'm saying? And then the vetting is kind of now over and now how everybody's sad and you're moving on. That's just something I think happens a lot. And I just thought maybe it'd be good to talk about too. When the vetting stops.
I will give you a side note. This is something I use when I talk to some of my friends in relationships like this. Women love with emotion, okay? Women love with emotion. Men love with thought. And that's where the conflict comes in, because a lot of times you love with, like you said, you get hurt, you bounce back. Men, because we love with thoughts, every time something happens, we constantly thinking about it, constantly remember. That's why when we get into that next relationship, we still thinking about what we just went through, and we bring in all that thought and memory. Whereas because your emotion, you're gone. You done moved on. You done got rid of that person because you're not thinking about them anymore. Whereas men, we love with thought. We love with thought, and that's where, like a lot of times, I posted the other day. I said, if you want to aggravate a man, tell him he never tells you he loves you. And then when he does, say you don't act like it. And because we don't act with him, we calculate everything we do. I'm gonna take her here. I'm gonna give her this. That's sort of how men think about, okay, I love her, so I'm gonna do all these things for her. We don't. Like, women are looking for that emotional. You don't come and talk to me and tell me how you feel. We don't do that because that's not how we think. That's not how we function. That's not how we think of as I love you. So we love you. So we try to give and cater and nurture and, make sure you feel secure in that relationship. So when you say you don't talk to me or you don't tell me you love me and all these kind of things, you're taking them out of their comfort zone because they don't know how to respond to that, because that's not how a man functions. He doesn't function with emotions. He functions with thought. So that's why I said, women love with emotion, men thought. And if you keep that in mind, it'll help you to understand how guys are thinking, because you'll see the reaction. You'll see the reaction, or you hear them constantly talking about something they went through with somebody else because it's still in their thought. That's because that's what we're constantly thinking about, what we just went through, and we're not going to go through it again. We've been through all this, or I'd have been cheated on 5 times. So now everything you do, I'm looking to see if it's something that reminds me something that you about to cheat too. Mm-hmm. So that's why I say you have to look at it, men, that way. If you look at it that way, you have a much better understanding.
There's a question or a comment from LeBaker. She said, when the vetting stops, you will fall into a category. You may not like what category you fall into.
True. No, that's absolutely true.
But the thing about that is this. The average man who's about his business has already put himself in a category. So him falling into a category doesn't even matter. He's going to be the hardworking and studious guy that's solid. That's a category. Or he's going to be the guy that's a miscreant out here running around fathering multiple children with multiple men. That's no good. Men don't have a problem with categories because we're born into a category. So that's nothing from nothing. The problem that a lot of people have is that thinking men are trying to fight to get out of a category. No, men want to be considered good men. You find me a man that doesn't want to be considered a good man, I'll show you a man that's worthless. I don't care who he is, I don't care what he does. There's no man, I don't care if he's a criminal, that doesn't want to be considered a good man. That's a category. A good man's a category, a bad man's a category, a scofflaw of a man's a category, an asshole of a man is a category. Category.
And one of the things is, as far as that, and I posted something a little while ago, when a man has options, he has power. So whatever category, if you think he in the doghouse, and if he has options, he's not going to sit in that doghouse for too long. He's not going to put up with the nonsense, or you not returning his calls, or he trying to see you and you're not trying to see him. He has options. Now, sometimes women know when men don't have options, and they take advantage of that situation, and they say, ain't nobody knocking down his door, ain't nobody such and such. So you'll continue with that facade you're doing because you know he don't have no options. But a quality man or a high value man, whatever you want to call it, who has options, he may not be around for the nonsense. He may not be around. So keep that in mind as well. So when you try to put them in that lower category and they say, what? For real? This is me. I'm out. Think about that as well.
Okay, hold on. Let me address something. She says she's talking about how men put women into categories. We aren't talking about women. Stay on topic. The topic is this. Mm-hmm. Men are vetting women. So it doesn't matter what category a woman puts a man into if we're going to stay on the topic. It's us vetting women. So wherever women puts us doesn't mean anything to us. Because if we have an agenda and we're going to follow that agenda, then what the female doing doesn't matter. Because we can find somebody to replace her. That's why I said the vetting process is always ongoing. She did something, she got out of line, she pissed me off, and I got options, I'm out. I'm not waiting around. I'm not telling her what she did wrong. I'm not telling you what you did wrong. Not unless I like you that much. And sometimes I just don't like women enough to tell them what you did wrong. I'm gonna let you figure it out on your own. You're an adult. You should know how to behave. You should know how to conduct yourself. I'm out.
You just go ghost them, huh? You go ghost them, huh? No comment, no conversation.
Nah, I'm gonna tell them, look, we're done. There is no more you and I. Lose my number, don't contact. I have a way of being nasty without being nasty. I've done it before, and I have absolutely no problem with doing it again. Like I said, this right here, especially this, it's protected. There won't be no CTE here. Believe that. And if that means your feelings got to get bruised, battered, and hurt, then I'm a bruise, batter, and hurt them. but stay away from me. I've already look. You're not doing what I need you to do, or you're doing something that you ain't doing too much. As women like to say, you're doing too much. Stop. You're doing too much. That's how it goes down.
Okay. Look here. I'm gonna ask you these questions. Can you tell when a man is vetting you?
I believe so.
How so?
Well, when they first reach out, or see me and say something complimentary and come up or start talking to me, or just different things. Like, it could be anything, inboxing, or which that happens a little too much, but just different how the conversation. It's all about how the conversation goes. If he said, "Hey, how you doing?" Like I was walking into a place, and the guy said, "Hey, where you going?" I said, he's like, "Don't I know you?" Just start having conversation, and like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I thought you looked familiar," whatever, and we just have conversation. Or somebody inbox me and say, "Hey, how you doing? I've been watching you lately." There's different ways that men vet women. I was driving in my car on my way to Walmart, and I look at the side, and the guy's beeping his horn like name and number. I mean, I don't know. Is that vetting? It's like,
wow,
really?
It could be.
Shit.
Like, really?
Let me tell you why that could be.
Get my number.
Let me tell you why that could be. Because it's like catcalling. If a woman responds to a certain stimuli, some men will say, she's this type of woman.
Yeah,
if she doesn't, he will say she's this type of woman. This is why you have the term stuck up. Or she's stuck up. Or she's a high class. Or she's high sedity. Or she's a valley girl. Or she's this. Or she's that. They're all ways for men who have done something who initial impulses to get your attention. So let's look at it like this. Let's say a man comes upon a woman, she's got a Gucci bag, a pair of Louboutin red bottoms on, wearing Chanel. How do you think he's going to address her? Specifically for you, Lakia.
Well, to be honest, a lot of times men don't approach me for the most part.
No. Hold. Not you.
Not me. Okay, you said, okay, so see, a man seeing a woman with Chanel, a lot of times they won't approach that woman.
Why?
I believe a lot of men are intimidated when they see a woman like that.
But that's what I mean. That's part of the vetting process.
They're intimidated because they think you're judging the book by its cover because she's wearing Chanel and she's wearing she's wearing that she's high, trying to be like she's a gold digger, right, or high, or like have attitude, or the different things that you said.
Not so much high, but a lot of times they think she's high maintenance. That's what the appearance is. A lot of times, like I said, you gotta look at the guy. Right. He's looking at her and he wants to approach her. But remember, I said to you about you earlier, look, if that's you, they know because of what you have and all that, they're gonna say, well, she's high maintenance. And I can go into that role and in that role. A lot of guys realize they can't before they even try if they saw a woman like that. They're gonna look at themselves first and say, can I fit into that role? You know what I mean? They're gonna say, can I fit into that role? She looks like she's high maintenance. I got my name up. I'm gonna have to do a lot of things to be in her world. And most guys won't do that. Or some guys will say, well, they'll look at her as a target. Some guys will look at her as a target and try to see how they can get in with her so they can get what she got.
Bingo.
So you got flip sides, both sides of that.
That's true. The one
Go ahead.
One thing I could say is that a lot of times that does come up, but I do tell people, and even with the fact that I am a Christian and I don't care what, that's who I am. My faith is what it is. And I still tell people, look, I'm not perfect. I have issues just like the next person. I'm striving to be a better person every day like the next person. No one has obtained it. And so when that happens, I do be put on this pedestal like, oh, the kid don't do nothing wrong. No, I do a lot of stuff wrong. I'm very great at parenting. I'm great at my job. I'm great at being ambitious. When it comes to relationships, I haven't connected on that one yet. I'm working on it. So sometimes I think when men do that to women, you gotta look at these women and you put women on these pedestals that we're supposed to be a certain way. But the truth is, men are not either. You're not perfect, but you try to take, and then people try to say, well, you ain't ready to love. I don't think anybody really gets to that point of really ready to love, like everybody keep claiming that you're supposed to be. But because no one's perfect, remember that. But in that, my whole point of saying that is that I don't think that's a great way to look at women. If they have Chanel or not wearing Chanel, I think you should just have that conversation and get to know that woman for who she is, regardless of what she's wearing.
Now, I'm going to follow that up with a story, and then I'll ask you a question. Years ago, I know that my older brother and I we were in Tops, and we saw this woman, had to be a legit 6'1". She was wearing heels, which made her appear to be about 6'3", almost 6'4". He turns to me and said, "We not on her level." And I said, "Yeah, I know." He said, "No, figuratively and literally." Now, the danger, what you just said, look here, and I'm not directing this specifically at you. I'm directing this in the manner that answers the question of the show topic. Is the problem with that is that a mother will set her son up to approach somebody that he should not be approaching. I know it sounds harsh. I know it sounds caustic, but there are just some women that some men just need to leave alone. You find her in squalor, leave her in squalor. Men are not supposed to be helping somebody out that doesn't present some immediate value that he sees in her. We have this notion that women are supposed to be saved, and sometimes women can't be saved. But because men are indoctrinated to save women, that's what they do. This is why the military hesitates to put women in frontline combat positions, because the natural aptitude of him, or the natural inclination of a man, kicks in. He risks his life to save somebody who might not in turn return that same thing to him. That's why it's dangerous to set boys up like this. And this is part of the thing that boys are not taught, is that sometimes you have to say no to women.
So let me jump in. So you're saying, like, when boys are raised by single mothers, that sometimes they're set up for failure as far as approaching certain women?
I'm not even going to label this a single mother issue, because you can have a father who teaches his son that, and it has a greater impact, because if he thinks his father, let's take it like this, if everything his father has told him has worked out, he's not going to question that, because his father's told him and everything has worked out well. So he's going to go on, he's going to keep repeating that pattern until he finds out that, you know what, my father may have been right with everything else, but he was wrong with this. And this is where the trial and error comes in. And this is how a lot of young men get caught up with having babies with women that they should have never been with in the beginning. And it took me till I was 30 to understand this. So when I talk about the 6 years of me being on a dating hiatus or not engaging in women, that was what I had to break, because that's what I learned growing up. So when I say these things, I say them not only from a practicality perspective, I say them from a personal perspective. If we want these young men, particularly Native Black American boys, to stop making kids out of wedlock, particularly with women that aren't any good, then we have to teach them at a younger age that some women you need to walk away from because they are redeemable.
You know what? I want to jump in what you said. I just had a conversation with another guy, about another young guy. He's and the way that it seems as if his grandmother has been teaching him, like coercing him, not to deal with Black women. Because
His grandmother?
Like a grandmother figure.
Oh, damn.
And it seems that way, just to be honest. And what gets me is that there is still a lot of self-hatred, even in women that was raised in older generations, because of what the hatred that was given towards them. And so he tends, and with the comment I believe that was said was, we ain't worth taking care of. We're not worth looking after. We're not worth it. And so this Black woman pretty much said to him, herself is not even worth you taking care of, because you're saying it's about other Black women. Now, this is part of the vetting process, because now he's not going to vet Black women for the most part. He's going to vet other races. And that's why I'm bringing this up. So I'm not trying to change the subject, because this goes along this line. And that's the thing where I believe that's what's happening a lot too, why young men are not dating African American women, because they're being told we're not worth taking care of. But the thing is that true? So I'm saying what you were saying, Herb, it seems like it's truth in that. I mean, guys, is that true? Do you get the same perception when it comes to that vetting process as well, as far as with African American women?
The grandmother says this. Now, I'm going to assume that the grandmother has to be at least 60 years old.
She's in her 70s, going in her 80s.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Then what she's basing it on, and you have to understand this, what she's basing it on is the way that they treated the men of their era versus the way that women are treating these men. There's a clash of cultures and ideologies, and she sees what the women of today's generation, commonly referred to as modern women, were versus them. Homemakers, stayed with their men, didn't throw education or money, and didn't try to belittle men. She sees all that, and in order to save her grandson from that torment, she's telling him preemptively, don't go down that road. It's harsh, but the only way a lot of Native Black American women understand this is when their feet are put to the fire. This is why we've been talking about this type of stuff. And it doesn't ring a bell until somebody who looks like you says it. And all of a sudden now you can't use you're gay, you're shaming, your mama this, because it's coming from a woman who looks like you, who's walked in the path before you, that if she hadn't created that path, you wouldn't be where you are now. This is why you rarely hear Black men denigrate the men that came before us, because we understand the struggle that they had. So we fight tooth and nail to try and maintain some semblance of what the culture has provided for us to do. This, I'll put it to you like this. This gets deep. And I don't know if this topic is necessarily the topic for it, but there's a platform on YouTube, and this is what we were talking about with toxic femininity from the lenses of the Black manosphere. What she's talking about is just that point. She's telling what we call it as red pill truth. She's giving her grandson a dose of reality that she sees, but a lot of people are just disregarding. The same way that Monique was talking about going out in public wearing pajamas and bonnets is not cool. And guess who came down on her? Native Black American females.
Black women.
And that's true. And I didn't agree with that. My daughter came outside with hers on, and she brought it up, and I said, "No, you shouldn't get off this car. You gonna stop, because you know what you're gonna walk into." And it's, you said earlier, first impressions is a lot, and I'm old school when it comes to that. You definitely want to always keep a an appearance where it's approachable and professional, and always try to do your best. I agree. I'm sorry.
I need to ask a question and I'll read it. She says, if you have a negative outlook on women, why do you think you deserve women at all? Men don't operate on deserve. Men operate on earn. So the only thing a man deserves is what he can actually go out and secure with his 2 hands, with his mind. Men are when it comes, there's a certain type of man who feels entitled to certain things. That's usually a man who's always been catered to his entire life, who's well-to-do.
That's a spoiled, entitled man. That's what I say, an entitlement.
Well, no, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with it.
A lot of men are very spoiled, so.
Stop.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree at all.
Who spoiled them? Who spoiled them?
So true.
spoiled
So, I ain't calling out no names. I ain't getting in trouble with nobody folk today.
But that's, you know,
No, but it's a
you have to
legitimate
look
question.
at, you know, when you have our young men primarily being raised by single women, they're raised with emotion instead of with thought, which is what I said, men work with thought. So they get confused as they get older, and they react more to situations in an emotional manner versus a thinking manner. So that's why you have boys in school, when something happens, instead of thinking about their actions, they hit somebody because they think with emotions. They get emotional and they start to fight and they hit. And that's because of, and it's nothing against them, but that's where they get it from. It's emotional. And a thinking man or thinking reaction is, what's going to happen if I hit this person? And that's one of the things, like I said, I talk about my program all the time because these are the things I talk about with my boys. You know, think about, and that's why I tell them, one of the things we do in my programs, we talk about teaching them how to play chess. Because what does chess teach you? There's an action to every reaction. There's a reaction to every action that you make. When you play chess, you're not only thinking about that move you make, you're also thinking about what can happen if I make this move. But when I talk to boys, I'm saying to them, you know, when you play chess, the same way in life. What if you hit that person because they stepped on your shoe or they talked about your mother? What can be the reaction to that? You can be suspended. You can get put out of school. All these things that you're not really thinking about, you know, when you do it because you're reacting out of emotion because that person said something about your mother or they, you know, pushed you or whatever the case may be. They kick in the back of your chair. You know, those things. So in the program too, we talk about, I teach them how to use please and thank you in a negative situation. And when I first said that to them, they were like, what do you mean in a negative situation? I said, somebody's kicking your chair. What do you normally do? I turn around and hit them and tell them to stop. I said, and then what happens? I get in trouble. Teacher send me to the office. I said, but see, now we talk about please and thank you. We do it every week. I said, now think about how you could use please and thank you in that situation. And because we do it so much, when it happened, I said, so now I'm kicking your chair. What do you do in the thank you? We get around and they said, will you please stop kicking my chair? And then the person stops. What do you do? Thank you. I said, so now what happens? It gets the teacher's attention to who's kicking this chair. Now the teacher focused on them. They don't get in trouble. And they don't look like they snitching because all they did was turn around and tell them to stop kicking their chair. Because that was the thing. They said, well, it's snitching. But I said, are you snitching? You just tell them to stop kicking your chair. And when they stopped, you just said, thank you. What did it do? It got the teacher's attention. And now the teacher is focused on that student that's kicking his chair. Because now they're going to watch to make sure that they're not kicking the chair anymore. And now he's not in trouble for turning around and hitting the person. So that, like I said, we use those kind of things with our young men because the thing is, we raise a lot of boys are raised with thinking of emotion and they react with emotion. You know, something happens and because understand who they are, they don't understand who they are. So what do? They hit, they punch, and then people say, well, why did you do that? I don't know. That's the thing they say. And a lot of times when we do our public speaking, getting them to talk and understand who they are and say, because that's what we do. Talk about who you are. Tell us how was your day. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. So now when the teacher said, well, why did you hit him? Well, because he was kicking my chair and I told him to stop and he wouldn't do it. But now they can at least explain it. Whereas before they would say, I don't know. I don't know why I did that.
Yeah.
Because that's the first thing to come to their mind. A lot of times they don't understand why they do some of the things they do.
See, one of the things with that, Willie, is with those, with your program, and somebody asks you what's the name of your program and where it's located. So if you could put that in the chat, type that in the chat for them.
Oh. How do you type?
One of the things.
Okay, I see.
One of the things is the disconnect of when you talk about schools and homes, like what you're taught in the home compared to school rules. And that's why we had that pipeline to prison things, because you're told at home to do a certain thing. Like parents, female parents would tell their son, I don't care who put their hands on you, you better smack the hell out of them or do whatever. And it could be a girl. So they come into the school with that mindset, but that's not the rules or that the authority figures in the schools look at. Like some of this stuff is culture. Right. They're taught that.
Exactly.
So, and they're going to say, well, my mother and my grandmother always said that, don't let nobody put their hands on me. But if you're not connected with that and you're having that conversation with them, you're going to get that, and you're going to say, well, no, you should never hit a girl. You should never do this, or you should never do that. And they like, well, I'm told this all the time. When I'm out in my community, when I'm in home, this is what I'm told. It's such a disconnect period between schools and homes, and no one has figured it out. It's not like it's rocket scientists to know that in order to change things in school, we have to get parents in, and we have to be one big family together, and we have to work together. But until they do that, we will continue seeing what we're seeing. It won't change. No matter what, we can tell them whatever we want to in school. When they get home, they're getting a different message. So it's all these mixed messages with people whose brains don't develop until they're 25. So they're going to continue making irrational decisions.
And that goes right in hand with conflict resolution and vetting actually go hand in hand. It may not seem like it, but they do. And the way they do is this. What I tell kids that I speak to is this. The easiest thing to do when somebody annoys you or they're an adjutant is to walk away. And that's similar to what Willie's saying. Because once you walk away, you disengage. So unless that person is going to actively pursue you, you've already demonstrated that you can demonstrate your actions on a mature level that gets you out of trouble. I used for years, people, he can't fight because he never fights. Anytime somebody challenges him, he walks away. Until I got to a point where I couldn't walk away. And when I established that I could and would if I didn't have a choice fight, that's when I got left alone. We don't want that to be young boys, especially Native Black American boys, first response to every situation. Because for them, that one situation could be the only situation that they get that typecast them as a troublemaker. And once you're branded a troublemaker by the school or a school district, you're done. You've been labeled, and they're going to treat you as such. And that's what we try to avoid. This is why when we tell these boys certain things, and then their mothers come behind them and say, don't listen to them, they don't know what they're talking about. It undermines the whole process of getting them to behave in a manner that's conducive for them to get out of adolescence and into adulthood unscathed. That time between 10 and 19 for Native Black American boys is crucial. And I can't underscore, pardon me, how crucial it is. This is why we advocate for mothers to get them around well-meaning men, because they'll see, not here, but they'll see what well-meaning men do, how they move, and how they behave. And boys tend to mimic things that they see more than they hear.
You know,
sorry,
I thought you were done. I'm sorry. No.
Go ahead.
Tell me if I'm wrong for saying this to my son. So my son, when they ask to go hang out with some guys, but I see there's some girls hanging out at the house too. But they're all chaperoned. But you know how growing up didn't matter where things happen. Sometimes things would happen still where parents would be in the next room. Anyway, I said to him, don't touch nobody and don't you let nobody touch you. And he was like, Mom, why would you say something like that? Like, am I wrong for saying that to him at 15?
No, and I'll tell you a story. No, and I'll tell you a story. People know I work in hospitality. I was at work, and some kids that were no longer a part of our program, and some kids that are at that time were members of our program. They were downstairs on the first floor, and they're at the bathroom. As I'm leaving to depart for the night, it was about 3 a.m. and none of these kids really should have been out at that time. It just so happens that one of the kids had a room there that was had moved on out of our program. And I'm walking by the bathroom and I hear voices in the bathroom, which didn't immediately sound any alarm bells. And then I saw a female come out of the male's bathroom, and then I saw the boys come out of it. I was like, yo, first thing I told her was, don't ever take you behind in the male's bathroom again. And then I saw the boys come out. I said, what are y'all doing in there? They said, we was just playing around. I said, man, you don't understand how much trouble you could have gotten yourself in. The next day at practice, I didn't realize the kids were in the program, and we sat down, and for about 30 minutes, I put them through it. I said, take it from me. I said, I've lost a job. And that's a job that was about $50,000 a year when you talk about benefits and income. I said, for touching somebody, a coworker, was innocuous actually, but I said, keep your hands to yourself, because the one time you touch somebody, doesn't matter if it's harmless, you're joking, it can cost you. So there's nothing wrong with what you told them. You just have to make sure that the context that you're telling them in is appropriate. You said he's going over to a friend's house. They're at that age where even if a chaperone, they can slip off and do something, he can end up in a situation. There's nothing wrong with that. You just want to make sure that everything, because we as men, we're told something and we take it and we run with it. And it's not till we get some new information that we tend to do things differently. Just like don't hit girls. We're taught not to hit girls from the time that we can start walking till the day that we die. It's wrong to hit girls. But wait a minute. What if this girl starts pulling on a bat and she starts beating on your son? Are you gonna want him not to hit her back? You're gonna want him to knock the hell out of her because his life is in the balance. That's why everything that boys are told has to be done with context and the thought process that what you're telling them could ultimately lead to him being harmed. And that's the one thing that women don't do because they don't experience the world like men. And that's not a shot at the gender. It's just putting it out there that you have to be, everybody, but particularly a female raising a son and she doesn't have any male influence, she has to be careful of how she tells him to do things and not to do things.
Can I jump in there? Jump in there from a different angle. Now, what I look at it, like I said, because I refer everything back to programs, because this is what I do with the boys, and I talk about what you did was like I said, chess. You did an action to a reaction. The action was they were going into a situation that you were fearful about and letting him know that, that's how you reacted by saying, don't do this and don't do that. But what you should be doing right now, especially at his age, you should tell him regularly about how much don't do and don't do, but talk about what he wants to do, and then tell him to think about what could happen if he got a girl pregnant. Right. What could happen if you end up getting charged with, you go in a situation and you get accused of touching a young lady or somebody and they press charges on you. How could that affect you? How would that affect your livelihood, or how would that affect you going to college? You know what I mean? You have conversations with them like that. Because if you just say don't do, you know, they hear that. You know what I mean? They hear that. They hear you, but they don't relate it. But when you show them how it could affect them, that's why I told you. I don't know if you heard me earlier. I was talking about how we talk about in my program. We talk about teaching how to make money, how to start a business, how to get into real estate, how to invest in the stock market. And then I talk about, you know, but if you were to go, since you got a young lady pregnant, now that savings that you have, you're going to have to use some of that to take care of that baby. That business, you're going to have to use some of that money to take care of that baby. That stocks and bonds that you're making money from, now you got to use some of that. So now I'm showing them how them making pregnant without saying use protection, do all the things you need to do. You know, I'm showing them how them getting pregnant is going to react to what they want. They're making their money. And so now they start, you do like that. And then they say it, you know, well, I need to make sure I'm using protection. I said, and then I may respond, well, you also want to make sure just because she says she might be taking something, you still want to be responsible in your own thing also. You know what I mean? So you want to have that like a casual conversation, regular with them. So when he does go out into that situation, you might just say to him, all right, well, you know, be safe out there. But because you've been having that conversation with him all along, he knows what be safe means without you going into what you said to him earlier. You know what I mean? Because it's been an ongoing conversation with him. So he kind of knows without feeling like you beating him over the head with it.
No,
so,
yeah,
I mean, that way it just becomes a regular thing for you. So just have those regular conversations with him. I do, and that way it's comfortable. And then he'll even come back and talk to you about some situations because now he feels comfortable enough that you talk about it enough with him and make him feel where it's okay to talk about it. Now he can come to you and ask you questions about a girl or being in girl situations that he may not have been able to come to you before because the reaction saying they're having sex. You know what I mean? Because that's the first thing he's going to think you're going to say if he asks you the question that he may want to ask you so he can get a better understanding.
Now, one of the things, as far as with you, Lakia, and anybody, any woman, when you have kids that's in the sports, and if they're good at it, of course, they're going to have boys, they're going to have their pick of the litter, as far as with girls, with any race group. So, especially if they're at that star level. So, that's going to be some extra coaching and conversations that need to be had because they're going to have a world of, they're going to have more stuff coming at them than they probably could handle. And of course, if you're the big jock or the big man on campus, some things you just may not turn down because you're the big man on campus. So a lot of times it's going to take, hey, if they find that special one and they're talking about this one, you may have to embrace her and hopefully like, okay, he got this one girl. That's who he's focused on. He cares about her. Let me integrate her, because if you say, oh, don't be focusing on one girl because these little knucklehead chicks or whatever, little nappy head chicks or straight out, and I'm not trying to use the reference as saying as far as black females or whatever other race you could say about their hair or whatever the case is. I probably went too far deep in, but I don't give a damn. That's why I'm the controversial counselor. Whatever it is, you're gonna have to try to rope them in, because it's if you try to go that route and say, well, don't get caught up in this, then it's a lot to deal with, especially if you're a star athlete, and we see how that pans out in the NBA, in the NFL, and with some of these athletes who got 11 kids, 12 kids, and stuff like that, and it's wild out there. So the coaching process never ends. It's not individualized. I mean, sometimes it has to be individualized by each child based on what they're doing or what their likes or interests are. And you can't just lump it into, well, I was taught this way, or I grew up this way. Sometimes you have to take that time with that certain child to say, listen, this is what you about to be faced with. And you have to kind of school and coach them on that.
So I would say for you guys, could you, as single mothers that are watching, but with my kids, I'm grateful to say their father is in their life, and he does give them good nuggets as far as what they should and shouldn't take as growing up in relationships with men and women. But what would be like the number one thing that you would say as single mothers should teach their young men that don't have men in their life, that can't make it to a program? What would you say would be the best advice a woman can give her son? On top of what you just said, David, like on top of that.
I would say this. The things that led her, and this is where she has to be brutally honest, not with him, but with herself. The things that she did, she has to be open and honest with him and tell him, don't deal with women like me. I've often said this and I catch hell for it. The one thing that my father taught me, and I've never met my father, it's an immutable lesson, is to never deal with a woman like my mother.
Wow.
Unrepentant in terms of never yielding to a male authority. She didn't have to. That was just the way she lived her life. But also, and this is a show topic that we'll probably do in the future, the one thing that it led me to was breaking the cycle of creating a child that wasn't born into a stable home. And because women don't like to look bad, doesn't matter what it is, what ethnicity, they don't get brutally honest with their male sons. It reminds me of a situation I had years ago where a female I was dating was pregnant before we started dating. I didn't realize this. After her and I broke up, after it was determined that I wasn't the son, she called me years later, literally about 20 years later, or she contacted me through Facebook and was asking me if I would take a paternity test. I'm thinking, why? You don't want to tell your son the truth about your ways? That's what ultimately boiled down to. So women have to be brutally honest about what they did and how they were at that age. Doesn't mean they're like that now, but they have to be brutally honest with how they were then. And if they see their sons dealing with a female who mimics or even displays some of the traits that they were doing, they got to pull somebody coattail and say, don't deal with her. You're going to end up getting her pregnant, and she's going to end up, and the child, not she, but the child of your decisions to have sex with her are going to ruin your life. Got to be honest.
Now, with that's a lot. That's a lot, Herb. That's a lot. And I'm trying to package this the right way. But when you say, being brutally honest, telling your son this and that, so are you saying they should open up and share? It's like some of their discretions that they had, like mommy was like this or like that. Do you run the risk when you put too much information out there for your child to run with it and like, damn, my mother she's a freak, or whatever the case is?
Well, it's got to be. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dave.
Is he going to look at her differently, or whatever the case, or kind of undermine her authority? Like, oh, shut up, whatever, because you was doing this or doing that. I don't know how much you should, based on what you said. I don't know how much you should share give them that information. Right. Are they going to run with it? What are they going to do with that information?
So that's that, and maybe I can answer that too, because to some degree I agree, and some degree I don't. So one thing I'm not going to tell my son not to date a woman like me. It's funny. I know because they see a good woman. Okay. But to be honest with them, yes. Now, again, as David is saying, to what degree? I have had conversations because, Christine, I relate. Children, married, went through a divorce. After my divorce, I went through some things. And my daughters got wind of it. I had to come honest with them. I said, listen, this is what happened. I shared with them what happened. I apologized to them for what happened because they look up to mom. And I told them why it happened. They respected it. And it was like, and I believe that made them realize and appreciate their mother even the more because I was being honest. But would I go into depths of things? No, because I don't have to go into depths because that's not their business. I'm their mother. I'm not their friend. But there's some things I will share with my boys. But again, to what depths I've shared, no, I'm not going to do that. But I will say, listen, son, from my experience, this is what I would encourage you to do and what not to do. I have a son that's 29, and he dates black women, white women. Right now, his girlfriend's she's black. It doesn't matter. He's brought home different types of women. But one thing I can say, most of the time, this is my own theory. Most men date women that remind them of their mother. This is my own theory. And I would see a lot of the women that my son would come home like, man, she reminds me, but okay, but this was a little bit too, we didn't like her, we didn't like this one. And it was because she was like a little bit more mean and I'm sweeter. So he wanted to bring it up with her. So, I know that's crazy, but it is like she was mean. No, like, she's too mean for you, babe. No, he's a sweetheart, and I want him to be with somebody that's gonna appreciate him being a sweetheart. So, and I take advantage of it. So he wound up breaking up with her anyway. Not from my coaching. I stay out of the business.
Sound like it.
I stay out of the business. I'm like, you like that, I love it, but I did have that song. This is share real quick. The Justin Bieber song. My mom don't like you and she likes everyone. That was my song for her because I was like, I like everybody, but this one I just can't get. But anyway, so now the young lady he's dating now, she's beautiful. She reminds me a little bit of me, hardworking, and he respects her and he's trying to build something with her. And so I'm never going to tell my son to not date a woman that reminds him, but I will of me as a mother because I believe I'm a good example of a woman. But at the same time, truth. Be honest with them, but not going into detail. So I do understand what you're saying, Herb. I do believe that they need not to sugarcoat things. I don't sugarcoat things, nor do I try to insult my kids' intelligence. So just to share like that, I like to let them realize and see that, again, nobody is perfect. Nobody. So whoever you choose to love, you should work with trying to be with that person and respect them. You respect each other, come together and make things work. If possible. If possible. But if not, then you just let it go. You got to move on. Well, I agree but disagree.
I just want to, Christine just mentioned this is not the highlighted statement by Judy. What women have to start separating, and this is difficult for y'all because it goes against your nature, which is to be collective. What women need to start separating is women who have had children and divorce. You had your children with the man who you were committed to, not an unplanned pregnancy. There's a difference between you having married a man and you two had a child and you raised that child, but things didn't work out and you went your separate ways. That child, for all intents and purposes, knows who their father is, versus a child born out of wedlock who may not know who his father, or they may not know who their father is. I keep using he because we're talking about males. So you have to get that separate. They're not the same. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but they're not the same. Okay, so when we talk about these type of things, that's the aspect that we're talking about. Now I just want to go back and address what David and Lakia said and put it in a nutshell. Like Christine said, everything is based on age appropriate because what you do eventually is going to come out. And you would rather not have a situation like Lakia did to where you have to actually come clean because something has forced you to come clean, as opposed to you being able to set the table and come clean. It's always easier to eat crow when it's warm. And some women will fight tooth and nail to hide why they did something or what occurred, as opposed to just saying, you know what, this is the decision I made. This is why I made that decision. Don't deal with an individual who made that decision because they were behaving in a manner that was reckless. That's it. Because more often than not, most single parents, whether they're male or females with unplanned pregnancies, they were just reckless. They were sexually irresponsible. Period.
Okay, can I because
Go ahead, Will.
because your question was, what should you be now? Can you repeat your question? Because I kind of got
I
lost
think
in all the different
what could you share
responses.
with
Because now
yeah,
we're
would you
talking
share
about share
basically
with
what would
you that you could share with
single
your
mothers,
son, or how
you know,
to.
right? Basically, what you would share with them.
Okay,
To,
I just from my standpoint, I have two. Right. Okay. I have two things. Two things. One of the things that I always, like I said, understanding your son. You all this, so I hear people say about tell them about your past and your history. That really that's not what you're trying to shape your son to be a better person. You've given him your background, your history, unless it's something pertaining to something he's going through. That really, like you said, it's none of his business for the most part. But what you should be doing is trying to understand him and helping him to understand who he is. And by doing that is every day talking to him, like I talked about earlier, talking to him. How was your day? What do you like? What don't you like? Just general conversation, getting him to talk about himself. Because when he's responding to you, he has to think about those answers. Whatever it is, so what do you like to do better than basketball? Whatever, just putting random questions out to him. If you do that on a regular basis to him, that allows him to start thinking outside the box about things he wants to do, think he's gonna do. It's gonna allow him to start to understand who he is and the things he wants to do in life. Because now he's thinking. A lot of times we don't ask our kids questions. We tell them what they're going to do, what they ain't going to do. You know what I mean? And so now by talking to him and allowing him to understand who he is and be able to answer you back the way he wants to, being able to give you the answer about who he is and answering the questions, that's going to help him to grow personally and be able to be a better man for himself, because now he knows where he's going. The second thing, and I share a story with you. I say every day, I tell parents this every day in my programs. Tell your children that you love them. I love you. Say the words. I love you every day. If you think about how many of us grew up and our parents never said I love you, or some kids never grow, and that was my situation. I graduated from college. I moved out when I was 16 years old. Okay. I was a junior in high school when I moved out of my mother's house. When I graduated from college, which nobody even pictured me going to college because they said I was going to be a failure and whatever else, they had her in jail by 18. I called my mother and I had a conversation with her. I was 20 years old. And one of the conversations I had with her is I told her, I said, from the time I can remember until this day, you have never once told me that you loved me. And she said, her response was, but I do. I said, well, tell me that you love me. She said, but I do. She did not say those words. And it didn't hurt me because she never said it in the first place. But I had to bring it to her attention, the fact that she never once taught in my entire life of growing up with her in their household, she never once told me that she loved me. And a lot of times people just assume, well, they know I love them. I put a roof over their head. I give them food. I give them clothes. They know I love them. They know I care about them. But we don't say the words. We don't say the words. And so by saying the words, after a while, you start to show those words also. So saying every day, and I'm saying this to all the parents out there, all the kids out there, tell your kids every day that you love. If you want them to be successful in life and have a better life, that is the main key, is telling your children that you love them. Because now if they hear you say it and then they see what love is because you're showing it, now they can say and show it to somebody else when they get in a relationship. But if they've never been said to, they don't say it and how to show it. They don't, because they've never been given it and said to them themselves. So tell your children every day. I tell my daughter every day when I'm speaking to her, when she's speaking to me, I love her. I tell my granddaughter, I love you. You know, I might just call and say, hey, what y'all doing, Dave? Whatever. You know, I just want to let you know I love you, because I know how it affected me not hearing it. So even when she's mad at me, I still tell her, you can be as mad as you want to be with me. I still love you. And I'll be there when you need me. So, you know, I may talk to you in 6 months, but it's not going to affect the fact. It's not going to affect the fact that I still love you. And so that's one thing she always knows, that she can come in whatever situation, and that her father loves her, even though we don't talk that much. She knows that I love her.
No, that's so important, and that even is important to help them be more, just even more comfortable with women in the vetting process, as you know we were talking about earlier. I believe that's part of that. I tell my boys I love them all the time, and my girls, and I even I want them to sit on my lap. I hold them. I make them hug me, and I hold them. I want them to feel the embrace of their mother, a woman, that and what it feels like to be comfortable, and to be loved, and that's where it starts, at home. And I can say that growing up,
that's what I said.
I didn't have that.
That's what I said. When you say it, but then you also show it. You know what I mean? So now they see it. So even with your girls, they hear it, they see it. So now they know what they're expecting in a relationship. They know what they expect when a man say they love them. Or if a man don't say they love them. They looking, okay, well, he ain't even telling me he loved me. He not even showing me that he loved me. So, this ain't the person for me. They can make up their decision on their own, because now they know what love looks like. They know what that feeling of somebody really caring about them feels like. And like I said, I was 20 years old, and she could not say it. Even after I pointed it out to her, she still could not say to me. I said, you have never once in your life ever told me you love me. She said, but I do. She kept saying, but I do. I said, well, tell me. I do. But I do. And that's all she could say. She couldn't tell me that she loved me.
It's probably because she never heard that.
When my mother told me she loved me, I was 30 years old. 30 years old, she called me and told me she loved me.
That's what David just said. I didn't get that a lot growing up. I did grow up in an abusive home, and I did not have a relationship where I could sit on my mom or dad's lap and feel that love. And with my grandmother, she was, if anybody, it was her. But just still, so when I had my babies, and just to be a little transparent, because of the abuse in the background in my history, I was scared to touch my children, because I didn't want to be the abuser. So sometimes until one day I saw this woman and her big kids were sitting on her lap, and I was like, your kids sit on your lap? And she was like, yeah, they're my babies. And then I was like, what, you're right. Like, I had to let that go. I was like, no, these are my babies. And ever since then, them kids wouldn't stay off my lap. They just love it. They fought over my lap. You know what I mean? And I love that. You know what I mean? So that's where it's because if you have that kind of background, it's hard because you don't know how to give it, because you wasn't given it, and you weren't shown growing up.
Yes. And I went through that same situation that you mentioned. I just didn't talk about it. But that's why I moved out when I was 16. I went through that situation, so I can definitely relate to what you went through. And so, and like I said, I told my daughter from birth, when she came out, I actually took her from the doctor before her mother saw her. I saw her before the mother got to hold her, and I was talking to her and telling her I loved her when she came out the womb, and that because I wanted her to have something that I knew I didn't have, to feel something that I didn't feel. I never had the opportunity to feel.
Yeah. So that brings about the change in our next generation.
And I think overall, besides parents and all that stuff. We need to do that, period. Show people love while we
Yes.
here. It impacts relationships, it impacts communities, it impacts households. We do a poor job of that. We seem to, all of this stuff happens usually on an emotional response. When somebody dies, that's when they hear all this stuff.
Mhm.
Oh, I love this person. I said, but they're dead now. You never said any of this stuff to them while they were living.
Yeah.
We have to do a better job of endorsing that while people are living. As they said, give people their flowers while they're living. We do such a poor job of that because the self-hatred or jealousy or whatever the case is, it's too hard to say, I love you, brother, or whatever the case is, your sister, or whatever. But life is short and things happen. And it's unfortunate now that we find out things happen through social media. You're like, damn, wow. Like, I didn't know this happened.
Exactly.
And that's when all of this stuff goes on about the love and the testimonies. Unfortunately, they don't hear you. They don't hear you. People need, sometimes things like that keep people going and make them move in a different direction if you're able to express that or share how much they mean to you. We got to do a better job of that. We got to. Me included, whatever. I'm a stubborn jerk. I'm stubborn, like, but I know that's one of the things, whatever. I can admit that, but we have to get better with that overall, not just with kids, just overall. And even when you think about, people say, well, y'all off topic, but it's really not. The vetting and all that stuff, whatever, all boils down to building relationships based on love and connections and stuff like that. All of this stuff intertwined. If you think deeper, you understand that a lot of these conversations are intertwined. If you're someone locked in and say, oh, they're not saying that those direct words, that it's not connected, then you need to go deeper in your soul. But all of this stuff is all connected, intertwined, all of it, guaranteed.
True.
All right, folks, we done reached about the 2-hour mark.
I come hang out with y'all. I'm always up. I come hang out with y'all. I'm always past my bedtime.
Yeah, we don't mean to do that. But we gonna get some closing comments on this thing. And we're gonna get ready to close it out.
Well, I'll close it out first, so I can go. I'm gonna go first. I'll go first real quick. I thank you for inviting me. I look forward to doing the show with you guys, and I love it when you invite me because I enjoyed the conversation. I enjoyed it talking to like-minded people and unlike-minded people, just, hearing different views and being able to share. I think that's important for people to be able to come together and do this, what you're doing. I really applaud you for everything that you've been doing. And like I said, thank you for allowing me to be a part of it. And my last thing is, tell your children that you love them every single day. Tell them, like Dave said earlier, when they walk out to go to school in the morning, you don't know if they coming. Tell them you love them before they out the door, because that way you told them and they knew it when they left. Before they can't, if they don't make it back home, God forbid. But the fact that they knew their mother loved them on that way out that door, that could take them a long way during that day, even when they go to school. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thanks, Willie, and whatever you're always welcome to come back any week, whatever. You know how I feel about you and the insight that you bring. So it's all good, man. Keep coming back.
Thank you. I'll be back.
All right.
Mine is simple and short and sweet. Growth and understanding occurs in the gray area. Godspeed. See you next time.
All right. Kia?
Well, I've been holding on to this one. And I thought about this with this topic in mind for men. And it's a scripture. And it is saying, he that finds a wife finds a good thing, and he obtains favor from the Lord. So I'm going to encourage you men to continue to vet, because a woman is also your favor. And that's it.
And you know me, whatever. Again, I'm always say these subjects are intertwined. I want to. She might not want to be acknowledged, but I want to give a shout out to Christine for actually being a part of the Counselor's Corner on a regular basis, and even tuning in on the show, and also kind of giving her criticism of what should be doing better. So I think for me, sometimes we start something and then we go a different route. But for someone to have that vest of interest to say, hey, here's some questions, this the administrator and me, focus on this, I appreciate that, because sometimes through my daily thing, I don't get caught up in my attentions as well, but sometimes I don't. But I like to put out a good product for people to understand. We may argue and go back and forth over and over, but I think there's some valuable information shared each and every week. Some weeks it may be hard to get an understanding of what's really going on when people going back and forth, but it's always some personal testimonies or some jewels that share that you need to think about it. And with me, leaving with those thoughts of always letting, people that you love, your children and other people that you love them, is valuable, because nothing is guaranteed. And we see it now more than ever that, like, damn, they're dead or whatever the case is. And that may sound harsh, but that's the reality of it. And start giving people their flowers while they're alive. We can't continue to we have to learn to have celebrations, embrace each other while we're alive, and celebrate good times instead of waiting to come together when it's funerals or sad times. That can't be our story, because that's depressing. That's sad. We have to celebrate each other and throughout our accomplishments and keep pushing forward. When you do that, it makes you a better person. And I'm gonna leave it at that, and I'm not gonna talk out of depth. We out.
Just one other thing, people.
All right.
Hey, make sure you go over to YouTube and hit the like button. It helps us grow the channel, and it helps with the algorithm. Thank you.
All day long. So like and share, whatever, and don't be afraid to do it, whatever. Like, notifications, that ain't that important, whatever. Turn them off, or whatever the case is. But just let's keep building. Let's keep having these conversations, and there's growth within it. All right. I'm out. Everybody have a good night. Talk to y'all soon, and see you on Thursday. We out. Peace.